right, so first up we have Mary Pedraza from the Fine Arts Museum of San Francisco. In this presentation, Mary will discuss how she implemented ArchivesSpace to collect and describe her institution's exhibition records as the first full-time trained archivist in the 127-year history of her organization. Mary's main project has been to reprocess the Legion of Honor exhibition records that were initially arranged by volunteers from 1983 to about 2016. This was the only archival collection in the institution, and though the volunteers had good intentions, there was no oversight in their decades of work, which led to poorly described and arranged collections. That feels familiar. Mary will show how implementing ArchivesSpace has provided a framework to process these records and allow for growth beyond just this one collection. So Mary, I'll take it away.
Hello. I was trying to get on the internet so that I can show you my instance, but we'll see how that goes. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Pedraza. I'm the archivist at the Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco, and I know that my presentation's entitled Building a New Archive for a 127-year-old Institution. It's actually 128, and I don't know how to count, so 1895, thank you. I'm going to explore how I was brought to the Fine Arts Museums in 2021 to build our institutional archives out of a core collection of exhibition records, and how I utilize ArchivesSpace to implement our formal archive program. Okay. Sorry. I'm just trying to get to my slides. Yay. Okay. Okay, the DeYoung. So the Fine Arts Museums are made up of two museums, the DeYoung Museum in Golden Gate Park and the Legion of Honor in Lincoln Park. The DeYoung Museum originated from the Fine Arts Building that was constructed for the 1894 California Midwinter International Exposition, which was San Francisco's response to Chicago's World's Fair. It opened March 23rd, 1895 as the Memorial Museum. And it started out as a history museum showing art, artifacts, and cultural objects. The original collection was largely built from acquisitions from the California Midwinter, and also populated by personal collections of Michael DeYoung, who was the founder, and Charles P. Wilcom, who was a curator of sorts. The museum itself was greatly damaged in the 1906 earthquake and was closed until 1907 for repairs, and a massive expansion opened in 1919, with more expansions and additions and renovations between 1921 and 1966. The DeYoung then faced massive structural damage in the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake and was subsequently demolished and rebuilt between 2000 and 2005, and this is how it looks today. And I work in that tower. I work on the 8th floor just below that observation level. It's actually a great view. Today, the DeYoung ranks within the top 10 most visited art museums in the US and the most visited in San Francisco. And the DeYoung is one half of FAMSF, Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco, holding collections in American art, international textile arts and costumes, and the art of the ancient Americas, Oceania, and Africa. In 2020, the DeYoung celebrated its 125th anniversary, for which an archives assistant was brought on to assist with the celebrations. And the DeYoung notably has a long exhibition history, holding events and exhibitions significant to art history in San Francisco, the Bay Area, California, and the US. For example, it's timely, photographer Ansel Adams, one of his first exhibitions took place at the DeYoung. The Legion of Honor was founded in 1924 as the California Palace of the Legion of Honor by Adolph and Alma de Bretteville-Spreckels, who were inspired to build an art museum for San Francisco after attending the Panama Pacific International Exposition, another international exposition, in 1915. The founder emphasized the art aspect of the museum because they also intended to rival what the DeYoung was showing at the time. In fact, the two families had a long-standing history. The museum was founded as a World War I memorial dedicated to showcasing French art. Alma Spreckels, the founder, was a patron of French artist Auguste Rodin and collected his work, and she entered the museum to introduce Rodin's art to West Coast of the United States. And the original collection was built largely from her personal collection, which was strong at 19th century French art. The museum is also marked by having many local patrons and donors whose contributions continue to be cornerstones of the permanent collection. And the Legion is also very important to the development of art history in San Francisco Bay Area, California, West Coast, and the US. Notably, the original director was the first woman director in a major art museum in the United States. In 1930, the Legion of Honor held Diego Rivera's first exhibition in San Francisco. This is a place where many local and state artists showcased their work early in their careers and were able to launch many of their careers off of it. And the Legion is also deeply connected with local art schools via annual exhibitions, including University of California, Berkeley, San Francisco Art Institute, the California College of Arts and Crafts, now called the California College of the Arts, Mills College, Stanford, and many others. November 11th, 2024 is the 100th anniversary of the Legion of Honor, and preparations for that centennial led to my position being instituted in an expansion of the institutional archives. So we're currently at a turning point for our institutional history, and I'm hoping that by being here, we're having a bright new direction for library and archives. So our library and archives serve these two museums. Both museums are historically run by volunteers with limited dedication to the library and archives. We note that many times throughout our history, the library was included in initial plans for expansions, but they were always ultimately cut for budgetary limitations. Even our current DeYoung Museum experienced huge cuts, and the library was largely slashed. Our current staffing includes 2 people, myself and the head of library and archives, and she's in the back, she's here with me. Woo. Prior to me, it was just the head of library and archives, and before they became the head of library and archives, they were just librarian. There was never a true archivist at the institution. Since coming on, I've also added having summer archives interns, and so we've expanded to 3, but soon we're going to be back to 2. And I'm a termed archivist, so I'm in my 2nd year of 3, and so a lot of this is a lot of preparation for the future that is pretty unknown. I was brought on again for the Legion 100 anniversary to reprocess the sole existing archival collection of exhibition records and implement ArchivesSpace. In the last 2 years, I've successfully completed 25 years of records and built our instance around this collection. But however, I've not just reprocessed the collection, but I've also identified knowledge gaps and added missing materials to the collection and expanded much of our holdings. I've also done several other things, including building our reference collections and doing records management. And yeah, okay, next one. Okay, so the Exhibition History Project was the name of what the volunteers did to process exhibition records. It was began in about 1983 by volunteers. There was no oversight, no training, no structure, no standards. And basically, these volunteers did much of their work in a vacuum. Though the volunteers did have good intentions, the project had to be stopped in 2016 because they were doing more harm than good. The output of the project included a minimally organized collection of exhibition records. So you can kind of see a preview of what I was dealing with when I came on. This was their sheet, their exhibition sheet that included titles, dates, and very bad description of file materials. You can see file missing. That's always fun. And then it says, it's been missing since 2005. So you can kind of see the things that I'm dealing with. So this collection, one folder, this is basically how they described it. One folder held all materials for one exhibition, as you can see there. They added lots of staples and paper clips, the poor description, and it was not protected, i.e. file missing. There are many errors and inaccuracies in titles, dates, and descriptions, and there are lots of exclusions in the history, and notably the Achenbach Foundation for Graphic Arts, which is today our Works on Paper department. This department, this foundation was started in the 50s to take care of this Achenbach collection, and it has its own long and important exhibition history and is really important to the history of the Legion of Honor, but none of the exhibitions from this exhibition were included by the volunteers. They also utilized an outdated database. They used FM Pro, if anyone knows what that is, that was shut down. And it was intended to be migrated to ArchivesSpace, but it became very clear that that was not going to be the case. So it wasn't just going to be a simple migration, because I had to start over. Uh, this did provide a useful starting point and framework, and I do utilize this for the things that are unprocessed, but it's not great. So the first thing that I did was I rebuilt the exhibition list to process this collection, and I started providing my own. My project to reprocess the collection and implement standards began with rebuilding the exhibition list. So instead of relying on that sheet specifically, I reviewed primary sources in the archives for exhibition titles and dates, including calendars, magazines, catalogs, and newspapers. I ended up correcting hundreds of errors from the volunteers, including inaccurate titles, wrong dates, and many guesses. For example, when they didn't know the end date of an exhibition, they put in the end of the month, which was not always the case. And you can kind of see here where there's the yellow boxes that I've identified. That's where I was like, I don't know what the end exhibition is, but we can know that we know the month. And that's just a lot better than putting the end of the month, even though that's not correct. Many inaccurate descriptions, and there was a lot of missing information and materials, including the Works on Paper department exhibitions. I created this new exhibition list in Google Sheets, and this is what I transferred into our ArchivesSpace rather than using the volunteer sheet. So this sheet is ordered by year of opening date, closing date, and alphabetical by title. And this basic set of information is what was initially entered into ArchivesSpace, and intended to provide a placeholder for future processing, which I will show in just a second. Too many pieces of paper. All right. I also added other columns of information that are useful for internal purposes, and I did write down like whether it was included on the volunteer sheet, because it informs whether or not there are records currently for it. And if the volunteers did not know that the exhibition existed, then we know that there are no records for it. And this is also a living document that I'm constantly updating and relying upon for more than just this one project. So I'll go to my instance, if I can show it. Yay! My instance. So rather than the entire archives being just that one collection of the exhibition records, the Legion of Honor exhibition records and the DeYoung exhibition records are two collections within the entire institutional archives. There are currently 4, and I'll show you that. DeYoung and Legion, there we go. So they're separated by museum because the vast majority of museums' respective histories were separated, and they continue to be largely distinct, especially with their exhibitions and programmings. So within the Legion of Honor exhibition records, again, we'll see the exhibitions that are listed by year of opening, and I'll show that right now. So I have all the exhibitions for a specific year listed underneath its opening year. Then all of the, each individual exhibition receives its own set of description, and the children of that exhibition are the records we have for that exhibition. So I will give you an example of that 1930 DeYoung Rivera exhibition. So as you can see, within each exhibition, we have the exhibition title and dates, which is the basic information. And then as things are processed, we're providing listings of all the records related to that. And so this way, whether or not that is stored, no matter where it's stored, wherever it is in the archives, we're able to have that there. I also provide lots of note fields for each exhibition as we're processing, including an abstract, biographical historical note, scope and contents, preferred citation, restrictions, separated materials, and related exhibitions. Also, all the exhibitions receive a set of agents and subjects. Agents being the artist or lender or the body that contributed to the exhibition being displayed, and subjects pertain to the content of the art, medium, and culture or of the artist. I've used Getty controlled vocabularies for these, including ULON and the AAT. And then in time, all the exhibitions will receive the levels of description that we have here. But for now, the titles and the dates provide a lot of discoverability. So I'll just show you the kind of notes we have, and then you can see an example of something that doesn't have these notes. Okay, back to the slides. Thank you for your patience. Again, this this collection was largely inaccessible, but the main goal was to increase accessibility of the collection. The way that you can explore the archives now is via ArchivesSpace using keyword searches, looking for artist, medium, lender, period, culture, etc. Something that you can look for is like you can look for Rodin, or you can look for bronzes, 18th century. These are all subjects that have been assigned to process collections, and so they're all included in ArchivesSpace underneath that subject when you look up those subjects. I've also included related exhibitions, which is a list of exhibitions that are somewhat related to the current exhibition you're looking at, based on similar artists, same artists, similar medium. This increases a lot of discoverability of the whole collection. A lot of people find one exhibition, and they think, this is the only exhibition that I'm interested in, so this is the only one I'm going to look up. So this gives people opportunities to explore more than just one. And then finally, with ArchivesSpace being open source, these collections are discoverable online and provide unprecedented access to the FAMSF archives. Simply having the list of exhibition, even without any processed materials, is a huge step. And I've had lots of great interactions from people just simply discovering the exhibition title. Excuse me. Further, in the name of equity, previous access was only given to those who knew who to ask, or had connections, or even had an actual research project, because we did not have the bandwidth or the ability to assist on smaller, more informal questions. And so now I'm able to help people with a lot more. This is our only public presence, is via ArchivesSpace. The library and archives in my institution is unfortunately closed to the public, and so ArchivesSpace is providing the only place that people from the public can access in an informal setting. And so I've been increasing lots of public reference requests. There's also a lot more room for expansion. I'm almost done, Jessica. The entire institutional archives was just one collection of exhibition records, but we've expanded our holdings already in ArchivesSpace, as you saw, including institutional publications like member magazines and scrapbooks that previously were unable to be looked through without physically going through them. I'm also providing access to unprocessed collections via accession records, and our future collections can go on ArchivesSpace, including reference collections, departmental records, and many of our offsite records, which is the most of our holdings is stored offsite. Hopefully down the line once we figure out internal collections, I'm hoping that we can increase our holdings through donations, and being a repository that actively collects, and I'm thinking of community groups, local artist groups, or local history, even like Bay Area history. So I believe that's it. Thank you.